Now, Germany heads to the polls in September for national elections, the first in 16 years that will not feature the current Chancellor Angela Merkel. The far-right AfD has now decided who will lead it into the election, and the result represents a victory for its radical wing.
These are the leading candidates for the AfD, Weidel and Tino Chrupalla. An online poll of members of the far-right Alternative for Germany party gave over two-thirds of the vote to what many consider a hardline duo. Achieving 71% of votes is a clear signal from our party members, from members of all factions. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten so many votes. Weidel, leader of the party's parliamentary group, has been a prominent figure for years. She is close to the so-called Wing, an extremist group within the AfD, now formally disbanded. Weidel is known for her hard-hitting statements, reducing migrants to, quote, girls and headscarves, and knife-wielding men on government benefits. Tino Chrupalla represents the AfD groups in Germany's eastern states, where the party is strong. He became co-chair in 2019. Since then, parts of the AfD have been placed under watch by intelligence services, including its youth division. Now, Chrupalla wants to make his party more successful than the Social Democrats, the oldest German party. I would like to see the AfD get more votes than the SPD. That would be great. I would like that very much. Currently polling at around 10% ahead of the election, the AfD is very unlikely to form part of Germany's next coalition government. So far, every other party in Germany's parliament has ruled out collaborating with them.
Let's take a closer look at this with DW's chief political editor, Michaela Köfner. Welcome, Michaela. So how far to the right will these candidates take the AfD in September?
Yeah, that will be the big question, and a lot will hinge on those election themes. One thing is for sure, Weidel and Tino Chrupalla actually mark an entry point for the more extreme right factions within the party around Björn Höcke in Thuringia, the state of Thuringia, where the AfD party is being looked at very closely by German intelligence services over the concern, and I quote, that it may undermine the democratic order here in Germany. So I had the chance to talk to Weidel earlier, and I asked her that very question, how much further to the right the AfD would shift.
We stand for the constitution and law and order, which is why that question doesn't pose itself. It is true that we are part of the conservative liberal spectrum, but that doesn't raise the question of any shift to the right. And frankly, I'm beginning to find that question increasingly frivolous.
It's an unwelcome question. It's not very well received within AfD quarters, but the big question mark, how much closer authorities will look at the AfD, is hanging over it continuously.
Well, the AfD would also like to take Germany out of the European Union. Is there any chance of that actually happening?
The short answer is no. First of all, they may be the largest opposition party, but they don't really stand much of a chance to form a government. They would have to become the strongest party to have any chance of being any part in government. And also, even Weidel, their top candidate, doesn't, and it was quite clear, doesn't really agree with the very aim of taking Germany out of the EU. At the same time, she's very EU critical. And I did ask her over the EU's response on Belarus, those sanctions that are clearly unwelcome within the AfD. Let's take a listen.
The EU would have been well advised to let the US go first and wait which signals come from the US, instead of firing away and being obedient in advance. Just being a neutral mediator and careful with sanctions as an instrument. Do you rule out any involvement by Russia? I really can't judge on that. One can't rule anything out.
Well, the AfD's been fighting over how far right it wants to be ever since it was founded. So has that been settled?
Well, the top candidates argue yes, but when you look at the rather tight-lipped response by Jörg Meuthen, who's a more moderate co-party leader within the party, who didn't speak of unifying the party, who didn't really extend a very heartfelt congratulations to the two, I dare say that that fight is not over, although the party will try very hard to at least put this on hold until those elections on September 26th, where after all it wants to beat at least the Social Democrats, the big tent party that once stood up against Nazi Germany. So a very traditional party, and that could, if they succeed, mark another historical win after that first entry into the Bundestag in those past elections. So either way, they're on track to making history one way or the other.
All right, thank you for that. Michaela Kurfner, DW's Chief Political Editor.